What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pass podcast. I'm Phil Perry. A couple great guests lined up for you this episode. We've got former MVP, former Boston College Eagle, current Atlanta Falcon quarterback Matt Ryan on with us to talk some Patriots and to talk about what it's like to be a young quarterback. Patriots, clearly, if you haven't heard, have one of those. So we're going to hear from Ryan on what he thinks of Mac Jones, what he thinks about the rookie wall, and does it exist? Spoiler alert, he does. He says not just for quarterbacks, really throw in any position you want there, but Matt Ryan clearly has a pretty good idea of what it means to be saddled with that starting role right out of the gate and then wear down as the season goes on. Because in 2008, Matt Ryan's rookie year, his first 12 games threw just 6 picks. He threw 5 in his final 4 regular season games and then 2 more in a playoff loss to the Cardinals. So sort of a similar track as Mac Jones, who in that last month of the season, we know sort of came undone for him. And we talked about the rookie wall at the time through December and into the postseason for the Patriots. Is this what's happening to Mac Jones? We all asked it. We all wondered. I think that was part of it. It's a grind going through the college season, getting ready for the draft, preparing for the combine, pro day, and then jumping right into your first pro season and being asked to play and play right away. On top of it, there was a lot that Mac Jones had to deal with in 2021. And so we're going to hear some insight from Matt Ryan as far as that goes. We're going to hear about what he thinks the Patriots could do to help Mac Jones and the kinds of weapons that he might need around him. Ryan's been blessed with some unbelievable talent at the receiver positions in his time down there in Atlanta. So it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say about that. And then we have another conversation at the back end of that with former Mac Jones teammate, Jeudy. We collected both of these while we were out in Los Angeles leading up to the Super Bowl, but both great interviews for you to listen to this week as we finish off the month of February. Let's get into our conversation with Matt Ryan right now. All right, very happy to have with us now Matt Ryan. Want to mention right off the top, Matt Ryan is an official ambassador for Travis Matthew, a lifestyle and performance apparel brand inspired by the vibes of the California coast, which is where we are right now. And I've been trying to soak in those vibes all week. Matt Ryan, thanks for being with us.
Of course, man. Happy to be here.
So here in Boston, we've got a Boston sports legend. I'm sure people say that. That's the first thing that comes to mind as soon as they see you, but we still remember you as BC quarterback Matt Ryan. Jeff Hafley is a friend of the station, a friend of the Next Pats podcast. How do you feel about where your program is going?
Listen, I love Jeff. I think he's done a great job, in his first couple of years there. Had to navigate a lot of different things as a head coach, coming in with COVID and all the things that they've had to do. But I like the direction they're headed. I think he's a great leader for our program. He's done a great job of energizing, the alumni, doing a great job of getting the students on campus energized about the football program. And I think there's really positive steps for us in the future. So I'm excited about it.
Matt, I wanted to ask you about the 2 quarterbacks that we're about to watch play in this Super Bowl. And something that's interesting to me is that I think both would be characterized as pocket passers. That's how you've been described really since the start of your career. And I think for a while, though, people were thinking that the pocket passer was sort of going the way of the dodo. Where do you see your position right now? And are these guys that we're about to watch, and Matt Stafford and Joe Burrow, proving that you can still win from the pocket?
Well, I certainly think that, that's the case. Tom did it last year, and he's been a pocket passer obviously his entire career. I think there's lots of different ways to do it. And I think that's what a lot of these younger guys that have come in have proven, that there's just not one way to play the position. But certainly, being able to deliver from the pocket and hanging in there. You've seen both these guys throughout their playoff stretch, stay in that pocket, hang in there, deliver the football while they're getting hit. It's still a really effective way to play our position. And I'm excited to watch this game and see both those guys play because they both have had such great years.
And you mentioned Tom Brady. We are now watching another younger pocket quarterback here in New England in Mac Jones. I don't know how much of Mac's game you're able to watch this year, Matt. Obviously, you guys competed against one another, but what did you think of Mac's rookie season?
I thought he had a great year. I really did. We had the AFC East this year, and so when we're preparing for some of those opponents, you got to see what he was doing on the offensive side of the ball. I thought he was really accurate, made good decisions all year, put them in positions to win football games, and made some plays late when he needed to. And ultimately, that's what you want from your guys. But I think the composure he showed, really the entire season, should have people optimistic up there. It's, big shoes to fill. There's no question about that. And it's not an enviable position to be in, but I really think Matt can do that and do a great job with it. And he certainly had a great start to his career this year.
No doubt. And he showed a lot of positive signs and a lot for people here in New England to be excited about. The end of the season wasn't quite as strong as some other parts for him, though, Matt. And I wanted to ask you, as somebody who's been through it, first round draft pick, playing right away, is there something to the idea of a rookie wall at the quarterback position?
I'm not sure it's just the quarterback position. It's such a difference, in the length of the season, the additional game this year. It's just a different grind, and it takes getting used to, and keeping that competitive stamina at a high level week in and week out, for a longer amount of time. Experience helps with that, and I think guys learn how to make it work for them. Everybody's different, but I think everybody's dragging by the end of that first season. There's really no way to get around it. It's the longest year from a football standpoint of your life, because you finish up your college season, and then next thing you know, you're training nonstop, getting ready for the combine. Then you're coming in, it's a new system, and you have a lot of mental stress on you during the off season, and that changes as you get older. You kind of learn how to balance that, but that first season's a long year for everybody.
Is it just a matter of changing up your training, your conditioning? What did you do, Matt, after year one to help better prepare yourself going into year two? What might be some of the things that Mac is trying to attack this offseason?
Well, I think you find balance. I think that's one of the things you learn is to, find ways to get away from it, and find, ways to take time for yourself to kind of reboot the system. And that's hard to do when you're training, you get ready for the combine, you're getting ready for the draft, you're getting ready for all those things. It's hard to ever get away from it and recharge the batteries. And so I think, after that first season, getting away for a little bit, and kind of taking some time for yourself, doing a little traveling, whatever it is. For me, love to play golf. That's why TM's been a perfect partnership for me. But it's one of those things you got to find ways to clock in and clock out. And I think, I didn't really find that until maybe 3 or 4 years in. It took, a little longer than those first 2 years. But when you can do that, you find yourself better for the duration of the season.
Aside from some of that stuff, the off-season stuff, there's some team building stuff that the Patriots, I'm sure, could do for Mac Jones in terms of helping him get closer to his ceiling. You obviously have worked with some tremendous receivers over the course of your career down there in Atlanta. Do you think that Mac Jones needs that big play go-to guy on the outside to be able to help him get to where he wants to go? We're seeing it right now with Joe Burrow. They add Jamar Chase and his game takes off. Is that something the Patriots you think should be trying to pursue for their young quarterback, Matt?
Well, I don't know their roster, well enough to speak about what they need to do or don't need to do. They got after us pretty good on a Thursday night game. So I will say this.
Is that presence important for a young quarterback?
We don't play the position in a vacuum, and so you're dependent on offensive line, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. You're dependent on the defense, coaching, all those things. And so they've done a great job for a long time, as everybody in Boston knows, of continuity, building a strong football team from the inside out on both sides. They've always been great up front, both sides of the ball, very physical team. And they, could add a piece or two there. It's always nice to have, that security blanket, whether it be a tight end or wide receiver, somebody you can trust to win one-on-one matchups. And it's always, as a quarterback, what we're hoping to have.
I wanted to ask you about one of your teammates in Calvin Ridley, and obviously he's dealt with a lot over the last 12 months, and I really appreciate, I think a lot of people do, just how open he's been about some of the things he's dealt with. Is he someone that you're hoping will be back in Atlanta, Matt? Do you think he might be moving on? What's the latest on Calvin Ridley? Because he is a name that I think, a lot of football fans across the country are wondering about. Is he going to be available this offseason, because he is such a great talent?
I just, number one, hope he's doing well. And that's the most important thing. I mean, we spend so much time with these guys, and you spend more time with them during the season than you do your family. And there's a bond, there's a love, there's you're just tight. And when you see somebody who's struggling at certain times, you just hope they're doing okay. And more important than football, I hope he's in a great space and getting himself to where he feels better again. And then as a teammate, you'd love to have him. He's a great player. But we'll see what happens with the offseason, how things go. But first and foremost, just we're all hoping he gets back to feeling really, really good about himself and feeling really good and strong.
No doubt about it. Matt Ryan, thanks so much for being with us on the Next Pats podcast. Great stuff there from Matt Ryan. We appreciate him joining the Next Pats podcast. Now let's get to Jerry Jeudy, receiver for the Denver Broncos, one of the youngest, most talented wide receivers that we have in the game today. A little bit different than some of the burners you have that are down the field types of stretchers. He is extremely quick. He can live on the outside, but his maybe strongest trait was his route running ability coming out of college. Didn't spend all that much time with Mac Jones as the starter there at Alabama when Mac Jones took over for Tua Tagovailoa in the middle of that 2019 season. But man, the very end of that 2019 year, so New Year's Day, 2020, Alabama and Michigan are going at it. 6 catches for 204 yards and a touchdown for Jerry Jeudy with Mac Jones playing quarterback. So he knows all about Mac Jones. You'll hear in this interview, he was roommates with Mac Jones at Alabama. So let's talk to Jeudy about, again, Mac Jones in his rookie season, how Mac Jones can better reach his ceiling in year 2. And is there anything we need to know about Mac Jones as New England Patriots observers that only a roommate would know? Let's ask Jerry Jeudy right now.
Felt like we got to see the real Mac a little bit. I don't know if you saw any of the mic'd up stuff from when he was at the Pro Bowl. He's talking trash to guys.
No,
he's going after Darius Slay, saying, "Hey man, remember that? I just threw a touchdown. That was just like training camp when I torched you guys in training camp." And we didn't see that at all from Mac this year, like in the media.
Yeah.
Right? He's the perfect.
Matt. Matt. He got a little trash talk in him. So.
Well, tell us about it. And so that's the real Mac, is the trash talk.
Yeah, Matt. He could trash talk a little bit. Nah, that's not what he did. Normal like that. He don't gonna do it on usual. But if you talk a little smack, Matt gonna talk a little smack back.
Why do you think guys love him so much? Because we heard even before the draft, Alabama receivers saying, "Hey, if I could link up with Mac somehow in the NFL, that's what I would want to do." Like, what is it about him that allows players to really love him the way they seem to?
He's just a cool, genuine dude. You feel me? Great attitude, positive guy. And he's a great quarterback. So who wouldn't want to play with him?
Yeah. What does Melvin Gordon think about Jerry Jeudy?
I think he that dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Next year we gotta give him the ball more. Let Jeudy do Jeudy, man. Let Jeudy do Jeudy, man.
Hey, okay. Does Mac Jones need a Jerry Jeudy?
Everybody need a Jerry Jeudy. What you talking about?
I don't know if they've got one right now in New England. How about? But do you think he needs a true number one on the outside to help him get to where he wants to be?
I mean, I feel like every quarterback in the league should have that, at least that one guy they feel comfortable going at and getting the ball to. So, of course, I feel like he got great receivers over there, though. I feel like he got good receivers over there. But probably in the media eye, they probably not good enough, probably because of stats and stuff like that. But other than that, when I be watching, I be feeling like they got good receivers over there.
They've loaded up on tight ends. Jacoby Myers and Kendrick Bourne had a good year last year. They had Nelson Aguilar on the outside who didn't produce a ton. So to get to your point, the stats weren't great. So I think some people are looking at that and saying, if they could just get that guy on the outside, might make everything a little bit easier.
It's not always about the stats. It's about the scheme. You got to be in a good scheme and good position to be successful. So it's not always about the stats. So you could, because I know there's guys on the practice squad that should be Hall of Famers, but you ain't gonna never hear about them because they ain't got an opportunity at like some people. But like I said, it's all about the position and stuff like that. Other than that, I feel like they got great receivers.
Last thing I want to ask you about Mac, because you were with him when he had to make a pretty difficult transition into becoming the starter for Alabama, loaded with talent all across the board. How did you see him handle that situation, and does it surprise you now that he's had some early success in his career?
No, I came in with Mac. He was my roommate at Bama. Yeah, so I know him personally. I know how competitive he is. I know how hard he gonna work to get what he wants. So I'm not really surprised on the level of success he got. So it's very exciting just knowing they all come together, just seeing how much work he put in and hearing from how much work he put in that last 2 years at Bama. So yeah, I'm very excited for him.
Well, you got to tell us one thing that Patriots fans would love to know about living with Mac Jones. Is there any weird quirks that he had? Is he a clean freak? Is he a disaster? Can he cook? You got to give us one thing about living with Mac that you remember most.
Nah, he had never cooked. Damn, it feels so long ago. I can't really remember one crazy thing.
Any like late nights where he's throwing a video game controller through a window or anything?
He do be on them video games though. We used to do be on them video games. That's one thing I say about Matt. I forgot what game out around that time. I think it was Jeudy. But yeah, he do be on them video games though.
There you go. There's Jerry Jeudy. Thanks so much for being with us on Next Pass, man.
Thank you.
All right, a lot of fun tracking Jerry Jeudy down at the Los Angeles Convention Center, where we spent a lot of our time a couple weeks ago leading up to the Super Bowl. So great stuff from him. Always good to get that Mac Jones insight. And listen, there's somebody who thinks that the Patriots receivers actually got a little juice there. So we'll see how the Patriots choose to address that position this offseason. But whatever they can do to max out what they have in their quarterback and Mac Jones is worth doing. Just to hit on that note really quickly with some reporting that we've done over the course of the last couple days. Here, we're taping this on Monday, President's Day afternoon. Just as far as the Patriots coaching staff goes, I think that's where a lot of people's thoughts are with this team right now. And I'll tell you what I know. My understanding is right now that roles on the Patriots coaching staff are still very gray. I've been told that what's going on at the moment is some cleanup on the 2021 season, kind of going back over some things as they get ready to embark really in earnest on this 2022 offseason and how they're going to add to this team. Maybe next week is the week that we start to really feel like the roles have been solidified. But as of right now, things hazy on that front. So we've heard some reporting from Albert Breer that he's expecting Joe Judge to work with the quarterbacks, Matt Patricia to work with the offensive line, how they figure out the play calling duties. Still haven't seen much, if at all, concrete reported on that front yet. And again, what I could tell you is I don't think those things have been sorted out. And the people that I've spoken to, familiar with the Patriots, people working for other teams that might not necessarily be as intimate with the day-to-day details with the Patriots, they all have said something to the effect of there has to be more coming. And I believe when people say that, it's because of how they foresee the quarterback position being handled. Without a veteran quarterback coach, without a experienced play caller on the offensive side, there has to be more coming. And so while it's late, February 21st, clock is ticking, I still am going to give them some of the benefit of the doubt that they have time to add a piece, whether it's Bill O'Brien or Adam Gase or somebody else that can help usher this offense into the 2022 season and maybe even beyond, and give them the experience they need. A lot of questions about the qualifications that Joe Judge, for instance, would have coaching quarterbacks. He played quarterback at Mississippi State in a sort of a reserve role, is my understanding, there while he was there. But he does understand that position. You know, you don't get to the SEC and play for a team like that without knowing a great deal about that position. Bill Belichick has brought up that his experience at quarterback would allow him to coach just about any position on the field if he had to. That was back in 2019. So now a few years later, I wouldn't rule out the fact that he's a guy working with quarterbacks. I said that weeks ago. Said it here on this podcast. Remember saying it on Zolak and Bertrand, asking them how they would feel if he was sort of the de facto offensive coordinator, because my understanding was at the time that he might have been filling in to a large degree for Josh McDaniels, had Josh McDaniels left for the Indianapolis Colts. So we know Bill Belichick thinks very highly of this guy, but there are a lot of questions about whether or not he's qualified to do that job, whether it's quarterbacks coach or offensive play caller. And the Patriots often have had those two jobs tied together when they don't have an offensive coordinator in title on the staff. Bill O'Brien, for instance, back in 2009, 2010, was quarterbacks coach and play caller. He was not offensive coordinator until the 2011 season. That was his last season with the Patriots. He moved on to be head coach of Penn State. So that's where it stands right now. As far as I'm concerned, there's still time for them to add a piece, and people I've spoken to believe they will add a piece. And for the folks that are on the staff right now, my understanding is the roles are not necessarily set in stone. To me, it's the number one priority to get Mac Jones an offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach / play caller, whatever you want to call it, in-house, to make sure that he continues on the trajectory that he established as a rookie and that he gets better. Not a position you want to fool around with. Not a player whose development you want to mess with. You have to be as well set up as humanly possible to grow that player, grow his skill set, grow his understanding of the game, of the system, of the league, as much as you can. Because as he goes, your team will go. And so when people tell me there has to be more coming, I understand why they say that. And I'm with them. And so we'll see. If we get a few weeks down the road here and they still haven't made any kind of addition, and we have a better idea of who's doing what on that coaching staff, we'll get into it then. But as far as right now, February 21st, 2022, I'm not ruling out an addition to the staff that makes everybody feel a little bit more comfortable. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Next Pats podcast. I want to tell you, please keep an eye out for another Next Pats episode. It's going to be coming out in just a few days here. We had a nice long conversation with Lawrence Guy during Super Bowl week. He was the Patriots' Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee this year. He was honored on the field ahead of the Super Bowl. You might have seen him during the broadcast. He was right there, front and center. Great conversation with him about this defense, where things stand with the coaching staff on that side of the ball. He tells us about Mac Jones and the leader that he is seeing Mac Jones develop into in his short time with the Alabama quarterback. Also hearing Lawrence Guy talk about another Alabama product, Christian Barmore, with whom he worked very closely, of course, throughout Barmore's rookie season. So some great insight there from Guy on one of the best young players on this Patriots roster. So like I said, make sure you're keeping an eye out for the next Pats episode. Thanks so much for listening to this one, and we'll talk to you very soon.